All right, so let's talk about some of these issues on conservatives versus LGBT community. We have a lot going on, without a doubt. Everywhere we look, on every station, conservative, liberal, whatever, somebody is talking about being gay or being trans. It is absolutely everywhere. How did we get here? How on earth did we get to this point? Good question. And there's a lot to unpack. First of all, let's start with some recent posts about pastors. Pastors have been saying for literally centuries that gay is a choice, that gay trans people are wrong, they need to be fixed, they're broken, they are sinful, they should be exorcised, demon filled, confused, whatever. This is all stemmed from the pulpits of America. Generationally bad teaching that has gone from pastors to parents to children to pastors to parents to children for decades, even longer. Where has that brought us? Well, on the conservative side, this has brought us conversion therapy or reparative therapy. What is this? Traditionally, since the 1920s, we have engaged in conversion therapy to fix gay trans people. Why? Because we consider it evil, bad, morally corrupt. What have we done since the 1920s? Well, let's talk about it. We'll talk about how we have chemically castrated people. We have literally castrated people and then transplanted heterosexual testicles onto a gay man thinking that this would make him straight. Now, back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, we didn't have this whole idea about organ donor rejection. Didn't end well. We have ice pick lobotomy people. We have electroshock therapy people. We have tortured men, women, and children as conservatives for 100 years. We have given them drugs and made them watch homoerotica in order to teach them to be straight. This is our history. Most of you on the conservative side do not know this. You can be damn sure that the LGBT community does. They have read the history, and they know what it is. Most of you on the conservative side believe whatever your pastors tell you, whatever your parents have told you, because that's what we have been conditioned. Everyone's talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. And because of this one biblical story, we have tortured and murdered innocent people for hundreds of years. Go back to the Salem witch trials. Oh my goodness, witches, evil, gonna destroy the nation. We tortured people, we killed them, including a child, and most of them actually confessed to sins they never committed in order to stop being tortured. There's very few that actually stood up and maintained their innocence until death. One man in particular. They crushed him with rocks until he eventually died, and the whole time he professed his innocence. Now, after all of this, pastors preaching that you have a choice, and if your child decides to be gay, you must cast him out of your house until they decide to fly the straight and narrow and actually decide to follow God and be straight. being denied jobs, being forced out of towns. This is what conservatives have done for 100 years, if not longer. The fact that this still goes on today, and there are at least 11 to 13 states that actually still do conversion therapy, and conservatives say nothing, says a lot. Now, they'll stand up there and they'll bitch about the LGBT community attacking kids and what are they doing? And they're just attacking our children when they're still allowing children to be tortured legally in certain states to the point of committing suicide or wanting to die is by far the most hypocritical bullshit I have ever heard. And that's what conservatives do. Again, most conservatives don't realize this, don't pay attention, don't read, don't do any research. They just believe what has been preached to them from the pulpit. So why, again, are we here? Well, after you torture, oppress, suppress a particular group of people, they act out. They eventually break free. This is what's happened with the LGBT community. Are we surprised that they actually embraced the Democrats and liberal ideology? Did conservatives honestly think that after 100 years of torture that they would come running up to you and willingly embrace you and your Christian conservative ideals? You have got to be insane if that's what you think. That is just stupid. Of course, they embrace Democrats and their liberal ideas. Duh, that's like a no-brainer. You've got to be insane to think they would do otherwise. Is it right? Not necessarily. Is it a surprise? Definitely not. It is what it is. So, congratulate yourselves, pat yourselves on the back. This is your fault. You didn't give them a voice. You didn't give them a place in society. You banished them. And you tortured them. This is solely on the shoulders of conservatives, and I'll go a step farther in that, pastors. Current pastors, past pastors that have taught this decade after decade after decade after decade. They're still doing it. They're still protesting conversion therapy bans in like Canada. All you have to do is Google this. If you Google this, you come up with thousands of pastors protest the ban, thousands of pastors. So it's okay to torture gay kids, but it's not okay to subject straight kids to gay ideology. Really? Seriously? And where in your twisted, psychotic thinking is this ever okay? It's not. It's never okay to torture children. Sorry. And after 100 years of doing this, we have learned nothing. We still do it. Guess what? They're still gay. Even after you torture them, they are still gay. They are still trans. People are who they are. So what we need to figure out is how we're going to deal with this as a church correctly. Torturing kids is not the way to go. And even if you're a parent and you go to church every Sunday, your kid's in Sunday school, they go to a private school, you've done everything right. Pastors need to start teaching that you may have to sit down and have this conversation with your kids. And how we're going to deal with this with the church as a church without torturing people is what you guys need to figure out. Because as of yet, you still haven't. And you're real slow to learn. Sorry, you are. We have a lot of crap coming out of the Conservative Party. Lately, who is it? Carrie or Kari Lake? She is running for governor of Arizona, posted something on Twitter. She posted a picture of a weird bathroom sign and said, "Oh, I'm going to stand up against all this LGBT thing." It was for a new stadium that they put on the college campus of Colorado. So she posts this, and I was like, interesting. Okay, I'm going to do a little reading on this. So if you read about the college campus of Idaho or Colorado, they say that they are getting rid of multi-stall restrooms. Okay, all over their campus, they are putting in single stalls. This protects women who are upset, feel threatened if a trans woman comes into a woman's bathroom because they feel like they may be raped, attacked, etc. It's protecting them. It protects trans people because historically they have been the most attacked group publicly and in restrooms, verbally, physically, and sexually. But no one wants to talk about this. They keep it hush hush. No, we don't want to talk about this. This would give sympathy to LGBT people. So it protects them, it protects women, and everybody should be happy. But instead, she uses this as a campaign thing. I'll stand up against them. It's a lie. It is complete bullshit. Now, I'll give her this. She probably didn't read anything about it. She probably just saw it, retweeted it, and ran with it without doing any sort of research whatsoever. It took me all of like 5 minutes to find out what the truth was. She didn't bother. And this is part of the problem. Just, fanning the flames of conservative bullshit and getting all this righteous moral anger going over nothing. What conservatives should be happy about. And instead of condemning the College of Colorado, they should probably be thanking them for protecting women and protecting trans people. But they didn't do that. They just threw this out without thinking, without researching, and were okay with this. I don't know if I lived in Colorado or in Arizona if I could vote for somebody that actually does this. Yes, she's Trump backed, and yay, that's kudos on your part. But if you're going to be doing this, I don't know if I could back that. I would start looking for another Republican candidate to vote for instead of you. But this is what we do. We are not careful. We put a lot of stuff out that is nasty. A lot of these cutesy, crude memes that we think are funny, wise, smart, funny, ha ha, and they're really not. And you guys make it really, really hard for a conservative LGBT person to actually keep standing by you and respecting you. It's everywhere. Everywhere on social media. You go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all these memes and stuff. It's amazing. I mean, you could read the comments every time a prominent conservative posts something that is anti-LGBT, and it's pretty much the same. They're mentally ill, they need therapy, they need counseling, they are sick, they are disgusting, and pretty much copy and paste it to every conservative post. Therapy like torture, like we're doing, is that the kind of therapy that they need? Probably not. I think not. They don't need it. Thank you, but no thank you. It's it's something that needs to change. And I'm not saying you've got to approve anything, that you have to change your standards necessarily. You don't have to run out if your child comes up to you and says that they're gay or trans and legally change their name or get them to a doctor and start transformation. I am not for that. So let's get that straight. I am not for that. But you need to be receptive. You need to listen and pay attention as the child grows and not be, I've got to get you to a priest. I've got to get you into therapy where they're going to make you straight or make you not trans. Doesn't work. After 100 years, we know it does not work. So let's switch to the LGBT community. These LGBT activists that are promoting talking to children in schools, K through 3, and even after that, honestly, it's just fucking stupid. You are repulsive. You are absolutely 100% repulsive. I don't know what else I can say other than you need to knock it off. You're not gaining any respect. I know why you're doing this, and so does everybody else, because when you teach children at a young age, it sticks with them. Knock it off. Children will figure it out for themselves, and you need to stop. Be there to support them. If they do at some point discover that they're gay or trans, but you are not going to go into our schools and push that everyone is some kind of variety of gay or queer. It's not right. Stop it. So for both the conservative side and these LGBT actives, leave children the fuck alone. And just be receptive to them if at some point they start coming up to you as a parent, as a pastor, and say, hey, I have these thoughts, I have these feelings. And start going from there. But other than that, leave them alone. Now, let's talk about trans women in sports. This is another major topic that is all over the place, especially with Leah Thompson, the swimmer. She should not be in women's sports at all. Sorry, no, shouldn't be allowed. But since she is, from what I've read, sometimes she's not careful about covering up. You don't get to demand respect from people and show other people absolutely nothing. That's a load of crap. You need to respect them if you're going to expect some respect from them. And let me tell you something. If my daughters were in your team and in the locker room with you and you're walking around with your tallywag hanging out, you and I would have some serious problems. You should not be in women's sports. If you decided to transition, all well and good, but you should maintain yourselves on the men's team. Now, if you decide at some point, since you are allowed on the women's team, to get that little nip and tuck done, then maybe we can talk. But otherwise, take your ass to one of the private stalls. Women's rooms are full of them because there's no urinals, and change there. Keep your privates private. Okay? I was reading the other day because I heard something in passing, and I think it might have been a doctor, and if it was, I am like severely disappointed that Leah Thompson is the same as all the other women on her team. Hmm. All right, this raises some red flags, gets my spidey senses tingling. So I do like 5 seconds of Googling talking about men's muscle structure and women's muscle structure and how they differ. Okay. So men are naturally, and we're going to speak in generalities because, some men are short and some women are taller, but men in general are taller than women, which gives them longer muscles to begin with. All these articles came up within 5 seconds of Googling medical articles and studies talking about the fiber structure of the muscles because we all have them, they're all generally in the same place. But as far as the internal fibers go, men typically have more type 2 fibers in their muscles, and women have more type 1. What does this mean? Type 2 fibers create greater power output. Advantage men. Type 1 fibers give greater recovery. They each have their own special secret power. So, greater recovery for women, greater strength output for men. And this is for a purpose. They serve different purposes in life. So, this doctor that said that Leah Thompson is the same as all the other female competitors should probably have his medical license revoked. Because it took me 5 seconds to look this up. Honestly, it was the easiest thing in the world. And it's a lie. So, how on earth, with all of this going on, do we get to a place where we can sit down between conservatives and the LGBT community and talk about some of these things? Talk about age limits, talk about social boundaries, talk about, okay, you're going to have to accept this or you're going to have to accept that. Leah Thompson should either be playing on the men's team and swimming for them, or she should change careers. That's part of what you're just going to have to accept when you decide to transition. Sorry, it is what it is. Do you think for a second, as a trans man, that I would disrobe in front of my male teammates? You are absolutely crazy if you think I would do that. My ass would be in a private stall. We have got to stop the lies, the secrets, the omissions. If we are ever going to get to a place where we can sit down and make some social constructs. Because right now, there's no way that's going to happen. The LGBT community knows that conservatives are full of shit. They lie. They are hypocrites. They hide it. And they know it. We know that the LGBT community is full of shit. They just lie to your face. Oh, trans women are exactly like women. I know that I still have to work twice as hard as a biological man to even be competitive. Testosterone is not steroids. I don't magically become just as strong as a man by taking testosterone. It's a lie. We have to do better. And I am saying this because I want conservatives to be the heroes and the champions for children that they claim that they are. Right now, not so much. They are not always the good guys riding around the white hats that they claim that they are. And that is sad. And it's time you stood up and started being that hero and saying, no, torturing kids is not okay. We need to find another resolution. You need to do this. And we need to stop these LGBT activists from indoctrinating our kids. If they turn out to be gay or trans, fine, but they don't need any help from anybody else. They will figure it out on their own.